Eating a plant-based diet is amazing, but you're likely obsessed with three things: where you're getting your protein, how to find high-quality omega-3s, and making sure your iron and calcium levels don't bottom out. That's not uncommon because store-bought produce has lost more than half of its nutritional value by the time it hits your plate. Commercially produced food has been bred for shelf life, not lifespan. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, you're often told that you need a cabinet full of supplements or imported super seeds to bridge the gap. But that's because you're missing out on what nature provides for free. Today, I'm showing you 7 wild staples that don't just supplement a plant-based diet, they anchor it with free, bioavailable protein, iron, vitamins, and even the rarest fatty acids in the plant kingdom. Ready to dive in? If you're vegan or vegetarian, the omega-3 struggle is real. There's a niche that is filled by flaxseed or chia seeds, but while you're grinding these seeds to make them bioavailable, nature is growing a ready-to-eat solution right there in the sun: Purslane. All you have to do to make the omega-3 bioavailable is chew. Ounce for ounce, this succulent green contains more alpha-linoleic acid, ALA, than any other leafy vegetable on the entire planet. It's a cardiovascular goldmine that supports brain health and crushes inflammation. Purslane is not a yucky survival food, nor are any of the delicious weeds on this list. In fact, it's a prized ingredient for high-end chefs. They love it for its unique mucilaginous quality. It has a succulent, juicy mouthfeel that provides a cooling contrast to spicy or acidic dishes. It's that combination of a tart, lemony crunch and a silky finish that you just can't find in a grocery store, or at least not in a mainstream grocer here in the U.S. It's a culinary powerhouse. It's incredible raw and power bowls, but because it contains natural pectin, it's also a perfect plant-based thickener for stews or a cooling addition to a spicy salsa. I personally love black bean and purslane tacos. Tacos de verdolagas y frijoles negros. There's a recipe link in the description. Tacos de verdolagas y frijoles negros. I like saying that. Okay. If your diet is plant-based, you may have been told that kale is the king of the produce aisle. But there's a wild relative of quinoa, yes, actual quinoa, growing in the rich, undisturbed soil of local fields and backyards that makes kale look like a nutritional lightweight. This is my favorite green, wild or otherwise: Lambsquarters. For a vegan or vegetarian, this isn't just a green, it's a primary source of bioavailable calcium and high-quality protein. It is consistently ranked as one of the most nutrient-dense plants in the world. While store-bought greens are often grown in depleted soils and shipped across the country or the world, Lambsquarters is a dynamic accumulator, pulling massive amounts of minerals from deep in the soil and delivering them to you at peak freshness. The flavor is where it really wins. It's mild, earthy, and almost buttery when sautéed without any of the bitterness you find in kale or the chalky metallic tang of store-bought spinach. Use it exactly like the expensive greens you're currently buying. Toss the young velvety leaves into a morning smoothie, or sauté them with onions for a mineral-dense side. Lambsquarters works as a 1-to-1 replacement in any recipe calling for spinach. Or you can use the seeds that show in late fall exactly like you use quinoa. Once you start cooking with Lambsquarters, you'll realize you've been overpaying for a lower quality version of what's already in your backyard. While Lambsquarters is considered one of the most nutrient-dense plants on the planet, our next plant is arguably the most nutrient-dense green you can find in the wild or anywhere else: stinging nettle. I know this plant can be intimidating, but for a vegan or vegetarian, nettle is the ultimate life hack. is a plant-based powerhouse that is so concentrated with minerals it's basically a natural multivitamin. If you struggle with maintaining iron levels, Nettles is your answer. It's not just loaded with iron, it's also packed with the vitamin C your body requires to actually absorb it. It's a complete bioavailable package that supports energy, blood health, and even provides a surprisingly high amount of protein, giving it a somewhat meaty taste. The sting is just nature's way of protecting something this valuable. The moment you hit those leaves with heat, whether you're blanching, steaming, or sautéing, the sting is completely neutralized. What's left is a rich, savory green that has a deeper, more meaty flavor than any other store-bought vegetable. In the kitchen, Nettle makes a vibrant, emerald green pesto that puts basil to shame, or a fortifying soup that has been a spring tonic for centuries. You can even dry the leaves for a high-mineral tea that keeps you nourished all winter. The seeds are also edible. They appear in mid to late summer. They are tiny, crunchy powerhouses that act as an adaptogen, meaning they help your body handle stress and can provide a steady, caffeine-free energy boost. We've covered healthy fats, protein, and iron. Now let's talk about the plant that provides the one thing that American diets often lack: bitterness. You see dandelions every day, but while most people are trying to poison them for that perfect suburban lawn, you should be harvesting them for your liver. Every part of the plant is a superfood. The young leaves are packed with vitamin A, C, and K, but it's the bitter compounds that are the real secret. They stimulate digestion and support liver health. The exact same benefits companies try to sell you in detox supplements for $40 a bottle. The yellow flowers are high in antioxidants, and the roots can be roasted into a coffee alternative that's actually good for your gallbladder. Until the end of World War II, dandelions were a staple in American cookbooks. We didn't stop eating them because they weren't good. We stopped eating them because we were told a perfect lawn was more important than a perfect diet. It's time to bring them back to the table. If you decide to only forage one plant on this list, dandelion should be it. I don't know if you'll ever find anyone that claims plantain is their favorite wild green to eat, but for a vegan or vegetarian, it might be one of the most important to have in your wild pantry. Plantain is a nutritional workhorse, especially for its silica and zinc content, minerals that are vital for skin, hair, and connective tissue, which can sometimes be tricky to optimize on a strictly plant-based diet. The reason it's rarely a favorite is because it can be quite fibrous, but that's a culinary challenge, not a nutritional one. When you harvest the very young, tender leaves in the spring, they have a subtle, nutty flavor, almost like a mushroom. The trick is in the preparation. You don't just toss old plantain leaves into a salad. You treat the younger leaves like a hearty collard green, braised long and slow, or you finely mince them to break up those signature strings, or add them to soups or stews where they act as a mineral-dense fortifier. You can also dry and powder them as a fortifying pot herb. And don't forget the seeds. The husk of plantain seeds are actually psyllium, the exact same thing found in expensive fiber supplements. So instead of buying a plastic tub of fiber, you can harvest the seed spikes in late summer for a free, wild digestive aid. Most people walk right past the scalloped leaves of common mallow. But for a vegan or vegetarian, mallow is a secret weapon for digestive health. It belongs to the same family as okra and hibiscus, which means it's loaded with mucilage, a soothing gel-like fiber that coats and heals the digestive tract. In a world of processed gut health drinks and expensive probiotics, mallow offers a gentle, plant-based way to reduce inflammation from the inside out. But don't let the soothing part fool you. It's also a nutritional heavy hitter. Mallow is exceptionally high in calcium, magnesium, and potassium. If you've been relying on supplements to keep your electrolytes in balance or your bones strong, this weed is a bioavailable alternative growing right in your garden. Culinarily, it's one of the most versatile plants on this list. The leaves have a mild, pleasant flavor that make them a perfect base for a green smoothie or a sauté. Because of that mucilage, mallow acts as a natural plant-based binder. If you're making vegan soups or stews and want that rich, thick consistency without using cornstarch or flour, mallow is your answer. You can also steep mallow leaves in cool water for a soothing tea that cools indigestion or soothes a sore throat. And keep an eye out for the seed pods, which look like tiny green cheese wheels. They're crunchy, nutty, and packed with fiber. You may have seen this one growing in your fish tank. You've definitely seen it growing on ponds. But for a vegan or vegetarian, this tiny floating plant might be the most significant discovery on this list. For decades, the biggest argument against a plant-based diet was B12. The idea that vitamin B12 simply doesn't exist in the plant kingdom in a bioavailable form. But recent research has turned that one on its head, something that Southeast Asian cultures have known for quite some time, a plant known to them as khai-nam, which translates to water eggs. I'm talking, of course, about duckweed. Duckweed, specifically species in the Wolffia genus, have been found to contain active vitamin B12 along with a complete amino acid profile that rivals animal protein. This isn't just a weed, it's a high-protein aquatic superfood that grows faster than almost any other plant on Earth. Now, a huge disclaimer here. Because duckweed is a bioaccumulator, you can't just scoop it out of a stagnant suburban golf course pond where it's soaking up runoff and chemicals. You want to harvest it from clean, known water sources, or even better, grow it yourself in a simple, controlled setup at home, where it will grow much faster than you can imagine. It has a surprisingly mild, slightly sweet flavor, reminiscent of watercress or spinach. You can blend it into smoothies, fold it into a pesto, or dry it into a high-protein green powder that you can add at will into all sorts of recipes, even that post-workout protein shake. It's the final piece of a nutritional puzzle, a free, wild source of plant-based B12. Foraging isn't just about finding free food. It's about solving a nutritional puzzle that the modern world has made unnecessarily expensive. When you stop looking at these plants as weeds and start seeing them as the missing piece of your diet, everything changes. The omega-3 in Purslane, the high-quality protein in Lambsquarters, the iron in Nettle, and the rare B12 and complete protein in duckweed, these aren't just random plants. Together they form a complete wild architecture of human health that exists entirely outside of the grocery store aisle. By learning to identify and cook these 7 staples, you aren't just opting out of a broken food system, you're stepping back into the abundance we were always meant to live in. The puzzle of complete nutrition on a plant-based diet isn't solved in a lab or a supplement bottle. It's solved right here, on the ground, one harvest at a time. If you're ready to stop buying health and start reclaiming it, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. And as always, eat the weeds.